Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video we will be weathering the King Tiger. We will be using various products, including washes, oils and a few others. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. We start by adding chipping to the model. This is done using chocolate chipping color from the AK Interactive's 3rd generation line of acrylic paints. When chipping the model, remember to focus the chipping on areas of high wear. Areas where the crew are walking around and working on the tank. Things like edges of hatches, or where parts rub against each other. The first chipping effect is created using some packing sponge and pressing it on the model. Once you are happy with the chipping using the sponge, move on to using a brush with a fine point to add more refined chips on sharp edges and high wear areas. Keep working around the model, adding more chipping with the base dark yellow color and dark chipping color until you are happy with the result. Take your time with this step, don't rush it, and imagine yourself moving and working on the tank and where you think you would be placing things like your feet or dropping tools, things like that. Moving on to the turret, we follow the same steps as before, thinking about where the crew would be standing and moving around. Remember to focus the sharper chipping on the edges of things like hatches and hard edges. Now we are going to move on to pin washes. This will add some shadow to panel lines and start to add some depth and shadow to the model. Wash for dark yellow vehicles from AK Interactive is used here. It is thin with some thinner to help it flow around the recessed areas. This will help highlight the separate hatches and details on the model. with the hull, work the wash around the turret until you are happy with the result. Remember to focus on the shadows and recessed areas to give it depth around the hatches and different armor plates. Now we are going to add some depth to the tracks. For this we are going to use track wash from AK Interactive. This is thinned down and worked into the tracks of the tank. This will add some shadow and depth. We are now going to add some shadow around some areas of the model. This will add even more depth to the model. For this we are going to use Starship Filth from MiG Ammo. This is a fantastic color for adding some shadow effect as it is softer than using an outright black color. This will give a more natural look. To start, add the Starship Filth around the areas you want to have a shadow, like plates, hatches and between different areas of the hull to make them look like separate parts of the tank. Once you are happy with where you want the shadows to be, start to work the Starship Filth with a brush and a small amount of thinner. Keep working the shadows until you are happy with the results. You should see a clear darker shadow around the hatches and armor plates of the hull. add some interest to some of the chips, rust oil brusher from MIG Ammo is used to add some rust stains. A small amount of oil is added to the chips. Remember, a little oil goes a very long way, so don't use too much. Using a fine pointed brush, begin to work the oil into downward streaks. Keep working the oil until you have the effect you are looking for. Remember, take your time and don't rush it. Oil has a long drying time, so if you're not happy with the effect, you can work at it until you're happy with the result. Just like the rest of the hull, we are going to add some shadow and depth to the rear of the hull. Again, we are going to use Starship Filth. And as before, just keep working at the Starship Filth until you have the result you are looking for. Next up, we are going to add a little pre-dusting effect to the model. This will give a good base to add the dust effects with the next step of the weathering process. The dust is made from a very thin down mix of Tamiya, buff, flat earth, and a small amount of dark yellow. Try and focus the dust into areas that it would naturally build up, like corners and recessed areas around the hull. Keep working adding the dust in layers. You can add more to some areas to add more realistic effect, and areas where it will have been worn off from the crew moving around the tank. You can add as much or as little dust as you feel is right. Just try not to overdo it too much and make it look unrealistic. You still want to be able to see some of the work you have already done. It would be a real shame to cover up all your hard work up to this point. Carry on working with the pre-dusting on the turret, using the same dust mix as used on the hull. The dust is likely to be less heavy the further up the tank, so don't be so heavy with the dust on the turret top. Next up, we add some oil and grime around the wheel hubs of the tank. A mix of oils are being used at this stage. A mix of engine oil and bitumen colors from 502 from Abteilung are used here. The oils are thinned down a lot to make them flow around the details and add some depth. Now we are going to add some oil splatter around the engine deck of the tank. Some very thin down engine oil from 502 Abteilung is flicked onto the engine deck. This is done using a toothpick and a brush. Try to focus this around where the crew would be doing maintenance of the tank. Try to think where fluids would be spilt or the oil can would be knocked over. Try not to overdo this part as it will end up looking like an oil spill. But you have plenty of time to clean up and change this given the long drying time of oil paints. It is the small details like this that help make the tank look lived in and worked on by its crew. Just like adding the small personal items that the crew would take with them to make life a bit less uncomfortable on operations. Now we can begin adding the dust with using more 502 oils. We start with some dark mud as a base in the shadowed areas, then build up some dust oils and fade them into and over the surface of the tank. Dust will build up in corners and recessed areas more than parts that are more open. Once you have added the oils, begin to fade them over the surface with a brush and some thinner. Do your best to make the dust look as natural as possible and not leave a hard edge. Once the upper part of the hull is finished, we can move on to the sides of the tank. Using the same techniques as before, add the oils to recessed areas on the sides of the tank. Then blend them in with a brush and a small amount of thinner. Don't use too much thinner, or it will wash out the oils and leave you with a hard edge. The soft edge looks more natural as if the dust has settled over that area of the tank. Now we move on to rear of the tank. The dust buildup will be heavier on the rear of the tank. Again, we use the same oils as before but apply them in a heavier layer. Add a thicker layer nearer the bottom of the hull where the dirt and dust would build up. Keep working at the oils until you are happy with the results. Now onto the turret. Remember, the dust won't be as heavy on the upper parts of the tank. Add lighter areas of dust around the turret, and use the same soft brush and thinner technique to fade in the oils to look natural as if the dust has fallen in that area. When I got this kit from my friend, the exhaust pipes were already glued to the hull. This meant it would be tricky to paint them, so I have had to do my best to work around this small problem. I started by adding a layer of rust color to the pipes as base to work from. The sponge technique is used again to add some texture to the pipes. Different rust tones were used to do this. It makes the rust look less flat and monotone. that's a wrap for this part of the build. There is still lots to do on this build, lots of small details to paint and some parts still to add. Most of this will be covered in a later video. In the coming videos we will move on to the diorama part of this build, starting work on the mini art ruin building that is going to be quite the challenge to put together. As always, thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It is totally free, and doesn't cost you a penny, but it means a lot to us content creators here on YouTube. And leave a like or leave your feedback in the comment section. Your feedback helps me make better videos for you. Also, if you would like to buy me a coffee, please follow the link in the description. And as always, model on, guys.